I worked with grade 5 through high school students, and when we implemented our program last year, we had about 10 students involved, anywhere from, as I said, grade 5 to I think the oldest was grade 10. I love the program. I'll just say that right out. I think it's an amazing opportunity for students who are not necessarily science oriented to be drawn into science because of the art portion to it. For me, I have always looked at pictures of the universe, taken by telescopes and other means, spaceships and things, and just been fascinated by how incredible the universe is out there and what amazing pictures they have. And so doing this program allowed me to touch that creative side of myself and connect with the universe in that way. Some of the things that I wanted to share about include some icebreakers to get going. One of them is the Kahoots, and I'm just trying to get to that screen right now, so I'm going to share that. So you'll see on my screen that if you go to Kahoot, I have created 2 Kahoots. One is astronomy for astrophotography class, and then I did a workshop on for educators on the astrophotography program. And with this, you can go in, you can search it under my name. The information is up on the portal, and I'll tell you exactly where afterwards. If you haven't used Kahoot before, it looks a little bit like this. There's questions, and then these were, when I created it, the different answers to go along with the questions. When you want to play, you click on play. And in my case, it's a classic version. And then there is a PIN number, and the students would put that in on their device, and then once they've entered it, then you can start the program. Right now, I'm just waiting for players, and I don't have any, so it's not going to go any further. The fun part about this is that you can kind of find out what your kids know. Simple things like, do they know that this is Saturn? Do they know that this is the Big Dipper? And from there, it gives you a place to start. Kids love doing this. It's a bit of a competition at the beginning of each session or each question. They answer the question as fast as they can, and then it tells who's in the lead all the way through. And then at the end, if you want to have some kind of little prizes like pencils that have the planets on them, or just little things like that, you can hand those out as a prize to first, second, third. I found those really, really helpful with my program. Let me get off of sharing. I'm not sure exactly how to do that, but I'm going to fake it here. Oh, there it is. Stop share. There we go. Okay. So in addition to that, one of the other things that we did is one of the very first activities was everybody has a username, and all of those usernames are connected to different celestial objects. And so I tried in my program to choose objects that kids were unfamiliar with, and then I would have them look up an image for that particular username and find out some information about it. So, if it was Penambula, I think is how it's pronounced. I'm really bad with pronunciation, although I can read all the words. And so with that, I had the kids, what is that? And they had to look that up, and then they had to describe that to each other. So it's a good way for them to actually have to dig into some research and then to own that particular username. It also helped them to remember their username, which was kind of a critical piece. Another piece that we did at the beginning is, of course, the very first lesson has to do with the telescopes and the various astronomers and scientists after whom they were named. And so one of the things I did, welcome to 038403. We're glad to have you. One of the things I did with that was I printed out those fact sheets that are in the curriculum, and then printed out kind of a larger picture of each of the scientists, and added those to, or put those in a folder for each of the groups, divided the students up into 5 different groups, and then said, here's some information, here's the computer, look up some more information about that person, and make a poster telling about that person. So they would work as a group to get that done, and then at the end of that, they would, as a presentation piece, share that with the rest of the groups. So if they were doing Cecilia, they would find out all about her, make their poster, and then they would share that. From there, everybody else would have learned about Cecilia. Meanwhile, somebody else is working on Benjamin Banneker, and then they will share their information. So it's a way for them to not only research and work together in teamwork, but also to then have a chance to present what they had learned. A couple of the things that, activities that our kids like the most, I just thought I'd share about them. One was the distance, size, and scale number 2, where they have to create a universe using the same size balls, but at different distances, and they have to measure that out. So there was a lot of measurement and a lot of recording of detailed information, and then they had to take a picture of it, put it away, and then another team, so they were doing this as 2 separate teams in 2 separate places in the room, and then they come back and they have to try to recreate that universe to the best of their ability using the picture and the scale information. And the kids absolutely loved that activity. It gave them, it was very hands-on. It gave them a very specific demonstration of the difference between, okay, this is at this distance and it looks smaller than this one, which is further or closer to them. So that was a really great activity, and I really encourage you to do that one for sure. Another one that was in the curriculum has to do with exploring light and color with different filters. And my one caveat on that is make sure you do not skimp on the filters you buy. Make sure you buy high quality filters, because otherwise it does not work. I also encourage you to make sure that you, okay, so there's a note from, okay, so Mary mentioned on the distance and scale. She says, it's a great activity for demonstrating why Jupiter and Saturn look so much smaller than the moon in the micro-observatory telescope images. So that's a way to relate it directly to the actual images the students will be taking. But yeah, make sure that you've ordered your materials way ahead of time. Some of the places where you can buy the higher quality filters definitely have a bit of a lag time in getting them delivered. And you can't always find what you need locally, especially if you're like myself out in the middle of nowhere. The other piece, when it came with the telescope and talking about the telescope and the eye, if you can get a local optometrist or ophthalmologist to come in and talk more about how the eye works, and the shutters and lenses that we have in our eyes, and then you'll be able to relate that to a telescope. That can be really valuable. They can bring in models, even if you have an optometrist that's really close and they're willing to have the kids come in and do a field trip there. I know our local one has one where they can actually take a scan into your eye, and then they can show the kids the different components of the eye. It's actually really cool. So that would be just another way of extending and connecting between the eye and the telescope. The only other thing I had mentioned earlier in a previous mini session was that make sure you know what machines the kids are going to be working on. If they're working on computers, make sure you've worked on that computer that they're going to be working on, and you know how to do all of the steps on that computer. If you're working on a Chromebook, make sure you've done it ahead of time, because you'll get to a point where you'll go to save images, for example, on a Chromebook, and it's not the same as saving those images on a regular computer. So I would definitely encourage you to do that ahead of time. Erica is going to be posting instructions that I wrote out on how to save things in Google Drive when you're working on a Chromebook. So, are there any questions? Oh, she already posted it, so she's way fast. So did anybody have any questions?
I'm just gonna unmute folks now because while you were talking, I didn't want any reverb. So, and if you, doesn't look like I can unmute Dawn for some reason, but you're welcome to also use the chat box to ask questions. Thank you for sharing all that, Vickie. You do some very interesting, fun things in your programs. I love the idea of bringing in an optometrist to understand a little bit more about what our eyes are seeing and how that can compare and contrast to a telescope. It's a great addition to the curriculum that we have.
No questions?
I'm not sure if Dawn has a microphone. Can't seem to unmute Dawn.
So for the two people that are on, what age groups are you working with? Ah, there we have number 038403. What's your name?
I'm Raquel, and I work with 7th graders.
Okay, and where are you located?
I'm located here in Boston.
Oh, excellent. Okay. And this is the first time you're jumping into this?
No, I'm one of the mentors, but so I figured I would give you a little support and see what you're doing.
Perfect. Well, thank you.
Well, you're in very different settings, so it's nice to hear from each other and kind of see what kind of you can pull from each other's.
But I had my students, because they use Google Docs a lot, and on projects earlier in the year, they had to download and upload and share things through their Google folders. So it's really useful to know that other people are doing that as well.
Awesome. And I think we have a chat box here from Dawn.
Thank you. I'm listening in. I work at the state level in Arizona supporting 21st century programs. Excellent. And if you do have any questions, I am on the West Coast, unlike these ladies who are way back on the East Coast. And so you'll find in the introduction page my contact information, Dawn, and you are more than welcome to contact me directly and just ask any questions you have, or put any of your staff who might be wanting to implement this program in touch with me.
Actually, Vickie, I have a question. I don't know if it would be helpful to people, but you talked about the way you assign students names and then have them research them. And I wondered if, just because people aren't yet at that point where they create their own student accounts, if you're able to share the screen where you might see some of your those anonymous names, so people can kind of see an example of what a classroom set looks like on the portal, what a participant list or something like that. Yeah,
for sure. Let me, I'm just pulling that up now. Trying to get my Google Drive to catch up with my brain. And of course I have 90 million folders.
You don't want to see my screen.
So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete the kids. Oh, whoops, hang on. I got to download the folder. Finer detail. Open this up. Editing. All right. So I'm just going to delete my students' names. So actually, I'll just hide. I'll hide.
I mean,
and no, that's fine. And then I'm just going to come over here and pull this onto here. Voila. Okay. And getting better at this slowly but surely. And then I'm going to push share. And I'm going to share this screen here. Share. So this is the screen that we had. And so we had, Sun, Mars, Orion, Moon, Pluto, Ceres, Charon, Titan, Galileo, Halley, Wolf, Altar, Luna, and Nova as some of the usernames. And so from there, I mean, some of them were easy, but what I challenged the students to do was to take something like sun and then find a interesting fact about it that may not be well known. So, you know, maybe it's something like the sun creates sunspots every, you know, and sends off solar flares, you know, every 30 seconds or something like that. I don't know what the actual number is, but something like that to get them thinking beyond just the regular, oh, here's a picture of the sun. And so you can, go ahead, Mary.
No, that's great. That's great. So what Vickie's showing is an example of when you're preparing for implementation, you send a spreadsheet like this with anonymous names to Erica, and she creates your classroom account.
Exactly. And now it's even simpler because that final column is no longer needed.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Yeah, that took a bit of finagling to get done.
Yeah. Now that we are through the research phase and just supporting you as educators in implementing, we can no longer have to worry about that. I know, especially with how many students you have, Raquel. Like, I'm sure it'll save you a lot of time getting involved.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Back to my screen, or I'm going to attempt to. I don't know what I've just done. Oh, there we go. Multiple.
All right. Well, thank you so much for presenting all your work, Vickie. This is fantastic. And for sharing your Kahoot. I think that's a great way to engage students at the beginning. And such a nice, easy thing that other people can pull from, which is wonderful.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Kids love Kahoot.
Yeah. Well, who doesn't want a chance to like play either on their phone or their iPad during a program to show how good they are, how much I love trivia.
Exactly. And you can use it for any of the areas. You can begin to create your own Kahoots for all of the different areas. It's not just this one. And you could even do something, I was just thinking with the colors and filters of, okay, what color is this actual image? And they can guess. And then you take it off and, oh, boom, there it is without the filter. And then they learn what it is. So there's all kinds of ways you can use Kahoot that are a lot of fun.
It's a great idea. Yeah. Think about doing it with image processing that way.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that is our time for today. Thank you so much. And we'll be back on Thursday with Raquel and Jana. So have a great day.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.